started discussing and we discussed that there is a webinar fatigue and we probably need to just catch up. And all of us have been missing socializing, partying and get together. So we thought of this online event where we can make social sharing possible. So this is an effort towards that. So we have limited number of people and we will be discussing something other than design. And we thought of finance, and when we thought of finance, we thought of Dr. Lamba. Most of you know him already, and I'm sure you know him as an author of bestseller book Romancing the Balance Sheet. He has also written around 1,500 articles and several books which are currently making waves all across. Through his books, Dr. Lamba has educated people on romancing with balance sheet, flirting with stock market, figuring out the world of figures with eyes on the bottom line. And he has also thrown a light on financial affairs of common man. Dr. Lamba's training programs are held internationally with client list exceeding 2,000 large and medium-sized corporations across several countries, including India, USA, Europe, Russia, Africa, the Middle East, and the Far East. His flagship program, the Finance Edge, has completed over 118 batches in past 29 years. And I'm happy to share that I'm a student of his 92nd batch, which was held in TMTC. A non-accounting person like me, for non-accounting person like me, this program was a turning point, and I continue going back to him for his advice. Today, I'm really happy that he's here with all of us at ADI. Looking forward to his session, and I welcome him on behalf of ADI. Welcome, Dr. Lamba. Over to you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Raghuveer. Thank you so much. Very, very happy to be here. I must tell you that the maximum admiration I have is for artists and design people. So today I am amongst people who I hold very, very high in my esteem, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So, Siddharth, can we take over?
Yeah. So before we begin, Dr. Lamba, once again a very warm welcome to you, and we're all looking forward to hear from you. And just before we begin, I wanted you to get some idea of what kind of audience we are. We are currently about 25 people on the call. So I'm just going to ask a question. So everybody, you will see a poll on your screen, and if you all could quickly answer. This is just to give you an idea of how we are spread. So some of us are small design services company owners. Some of us are working in design companies. Two of us are from design education side, and I don't think we have any fresh designers or students. So largely polarized towards design services companies. Yeah, I think we have most of the answers in now. So I'm going to end the poll, and this is how it looks.
Wow.
So most of us are owners of design companies, and I have just one more poll that we will run, and that is about essentially how this pandemic has affected us. So it has, for some of us, it might have affected very negatively, for some of us very positively, and may not have affected some of us. So yeah. So for most of us, it looks like the pandemic has affected us somewhat negatively, not very negatively. For very few people, it has been highly negative, but that's the orientation. So I'll just share the result. There we go. So about for 80% of us, it is affected somewhat negatively. And some of the pertinent questions that some of us had was, and I'm just going to throw 2 or 3 questions so that you could probably center the discussion around that. One of the questions was, as a design services business owner, what are the best practices for us? We come from a non-finance background, non-accounting background. So what could be the best practices for handling cash flows? What are the opportunities we could explore during this time? What are the kind of MIS we should put in place? What is the metrics that design companies should track? That was one of the questions. One of the most pertinent question was, why have investors stayed away from design companies? So in India, none of us are really, a very large company which is invested in, or I don't think anywhere in the world we are a listed company as design services. And one of the most recent questions being, should we be taking loans to pay salaries in our organizations? And if we should be taking loans to cover operating expenses, then what is the best loan to take? Whether we should go for a cash credit or a LAP or a business loan, and how do you really sustain your enterprise if the cash flows are negative? So this is the kind of flavor of certain questions. We will touch upon more questions and reactions maybe towards the end of the webinar. But I just wanted to give you a feel of where we are and how we are placed and what is going on in our minds. So over to you, Dr. Lamba, and looking forward to a lot of advice and guidance.
So thank you very much for that. Number one, to many of your questions, I probably will not have answers. Why do people don't invest in design companies? I have no clue at all. Certain other questions of yours, I will require 6 to 8 hours to explain what you asked for. So that naturally shrinks the number of questions that I will be answering today. How much time do I have? 15, 20 minutes, half an hour?
Yeah, I mean, we could take about 20 minutes.
So at best, what we can do is create a little awareness about this is one of the most misunderstood subjects. The first misconception, I liked it when you said, first you said most of us are non-finance people, then you corrected yourself to say you are non-accounting people. I was happy to hear that. Because first of all, there's a misconception about the subject of finance itself. People very often mistake accounting to be finance. And therefore, they stay away from it because they have an accounts department. They think that department is also handling finance. And nothing can be further than the truth with that, from that statement. So accounting is not your responsibility. You can easily delegate somebody to take care of that. But finance is 100% your responsibility. So what is finance? What is accounting? Accounting is the bookkeeping portion. Finance is the decision making. Finance is not only the post-mortem of the decision-making process, but the pre-mortem. Every action of yours, unless you weigh the financial implication and then take that action is not financially intelligent. So anybody in the organization whose actions can have a financial implication is a finance person. And therefore your entire organization is a finance person.
Right.
And if there is anybody who can say I'm a non-finance person, it is the fellow who calls himself a finance person. Because that department, very important department, but it does a post-mortem. It comes into the picture after the good or the damage is done.
Right.
So my first request to everybody is, for heaven's sake, don't stay away from this subject. The more you learn, the better it will be for you. Number two, you might be aware that financial mismanagement is the single biggest cause of business failures worldwide. Some numbers put it as high as 90 to 95%. 90 to 95% of business failures are attributed to financial mismanagement. And on whose part? On the part of people who say we are non-finance. Your finance department perhaps might be the finest in the world, but they are not there when the decision making is happening. They come later into the picture and say the result is this company has made a loss, or maybe they've made a profit. But by that time, it is too late to undo what has happened. So financial literacy has to go top to bottom. Then you had a question about whether we should take a loan. Loan is something you should be extremely careful before taking. Loan can make you or it can break you. I'm not against loans. There are companies, there are people who look at, there are promoters who get up and make statements that we are a debt-free company and they sound very proud about it. That's also a wrong approach, because everybody has a limited amount of money that you can invest. And if your growth depends upon money, and if you say I'm averse to taking a loan, then you're putting a ceiling to your growth. So how do you grow beyond that? The only way you can grow is if loans are available, why not take it? So productive loans are wonderful. Unproductive loans can kill you. So the ability to understand when to take a loan, when not to take a loan also decides the fate of your organization. So what is a productive loan? What is unproductive? So I have these two rules that I keep talking about. Because you got to understand when you take a loan, and this will automatically give us an answer to your question about loan to pay salaries, which according to me is a most undesirable thing to do. Unless you are in such a desperate situation that your people are there, you're supposed to pay salary, there is no money, what do? Probably at the back to your wall, to the wall, perhaps you might have to do it, but that's definitely not advocated, because that is an unproductive loan. By a productive loan, I mean, if I can take money, why am I taking money? Because I have an opportunity staring me in the face, which requires an investment of money. That means if I don't take a loan, I will have to give up that opportunity. But if I take a loan and I'm committed to pay 15% interest on that loan, but where I will deploy it, I can earn far more than 15%, then it's a no-brainer. If I don't take a loan, that opportunity is gone. If I take the loan, I will earn 30%, I have to pay 15%, but not enough. Loans come with an attendant obligation to pay back. And therefore, it is equally important that where you invest the money will bring it back before the loan has to be paid back. These are the two golden rules which I should require at least 2 to 3 hours to explain, but give you in 2 minutes. Number one, make sure your generation of returns from deployment of that money is higher than the cost of the loans. Number two, the inflow from investment, wherever you invest, it will hopefully generate an inflow. That inflow should happen before the outflow on account of repayment of loan has to happen. Now, your loan to pay salaries will not generate any input because it is salary for work done in the past, not in the future. Or if you are today in a position that you have jobs on hand and there are employees and you don't have money to pay salary and you are taking a loan so that those employees can be retained. And if they are retained, they will work for you. If they work for you, you will deliver some jobs to your clients. If you deliver some jobs to your client, that will generate income. And that income will help you return the loan. Then yes, go ahead. But if you are taking a loan to pay accumulated salary, so this loan is not going to generate any income for you, that can be a little dangerous thing. Having said that, if salaries have to be paid, they have to be paid. If you have no choice, then probably it is an evil which you probably have to take on. But like I said, not a very desirable situation to be in. So this is my take about loans. A big mistake that entrepreneurs make, and 76 or 86% of you are business owners, so I think I can safely address them. Lots of people say you should not take a loan because they think it costs you. You have to pay interest. By implication, they are saying, where does money come from? You have to invest money in a business. Either you put your money or you take borrowed money. So when you say borrowed money has a cost, you are by implication saying my own money is free, which is another very, very dangerous statement. Gentlemen, always remember, business is run with one objective, and that is to make profit. Creative people like you, I hate to talk about things like profit because you are there for something else also. But ultimately, your business has to be sustainable. And for it to be sustainable, you got to remember the returns from the business. Okay, let's go 2 steps backward. Where does money come from to fund a business? You must remember, business is a zero-sum exercise. Business by itself has nothing of its own and gets nothing left. It's a medium, it's a vehicle. So when a business needs money, it has only one option, and that is to borrow. And who does it borrow from? It borrows from the owner. Don't forget, owner's money is also a loan. A business borrows from the owner, a business borrows from an outsider. Since both are in the nature of borrowings in your balance sheet, both appear as liability. on, capital as well as outside loans, both are shown a liability. The idea is not to forget, gentlemen, both are loans. And why is it important to remember your money is also a loan? Because folks, two things. There's a different way in which I can treat a gift and a different way I need to treat a loan. If owner's money is not a loan, then it tantamounts to a gift. Folks, if you give me a gift today, and if on a Sunday I go to the race course and I blow up the money, no big deal. But if you give me a loan, I have a far greater obligation. I have to treat that money with much greater respect. I have to make sure I conserve that money. Not only conserve the money, I generate income. Why? Because loan comes with an obligation to service it, and loan comes with an obligation to return it. So I'm saying the owner's money deserves the same respect. The difference between a banker as a lender and an owner as a lender is a banker comes with a predetermined time frame that return my money in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Poor fellow owner doesn't put a time frame. That doesn't mean he doesn't want his money to be preserved. He says, worst come to worst, at least when the business shuts down, this money that I have invested should be there. I should be able to take it back, hopefully appreciated compared to what I put in, not depreciated. Secondly, if bankers give you loans with an expectation of returns, owners also give you loans with an expectation of returns. So owner's money also has a cost, and not only it has a cost, the cost of owner's money is far greater than the cost of borrowed money. Borrowed from outsiders. I mean, this is also borrowing. And I would personally put it at rock bottom. If you want to take an extremely conservative approach, then the owner should generate a return which should be at least 3 times what you pay on loans from banks, etc. Now you've taken this money, and what do? You'll deploy it. And you'll run your business with it. And that business will generate income. And to earn that income, you have operating expenses, salaries and rents and this and that. And what is left is called a profit. Now, this profit should be sufficient to reward both these lenders, owners and outsiders. And unless, therefore, the owner continues to get his desired rate of return, that business is not worth running. So I feel this, if you keep in mind, in fact, you got to remember businesses run with single objective, and that is to make money for the owner. Everybody else is making money in order that owner makes money, not at the cost of the owner. So you can imagine the tragedy when everybody is paid, salaries are being paid, rent is being paid, banker is being paid, but the owner is getting nothing. One has to start questioning, why am I running this business? Did I start the business to generate employment in the country? Did I start this business for vendors to make money, for bankers to make money, or did I start the business for me to make money? So folks, unless this focus is maintained, of course, having said that, why does owner get such a high return? Why should the expectation be 3 times? Because he's also a risk taker. There are years in which he may get nothing. So I'm not saying this has to be on a daily basis. But if you take a 5-year perspective, when you look back, on an average, the owner's earnings should be the greatest amongst all. So this is one more message which I want everybody to keep in mind.
Right. So Dr. Lamba, you spoke about ROI for the owners. A lot of us don't actually put physical money, but there is a lot of sweat that goes in, and we need to compare it from what would be the value in the market against what we are earning especially in the initial years, right? So that's one metric that we should look at. What are the other metrics that small businesses like us should sort of follow or keep our eyes on?
I think for your sweat, you should take out salary. Then the rest has to be return on money. So you're getting rewarded in 2 ways. One is for your physical labor that you put in. I suggest at least notionally, put a salary, whatever you think you deserve as your market price, maybe a little more. And beyond that, if money has been invested, and mind you, money does get invested whether you realize it or not, because the business is constantly generating profit, and all the profit you're not taking home. So the profit you leave back in the business is actually your investment of money in the business. So on that money, you should be generating return, which I feel if a bank gets, you're paying 12%, then owner should get between 30, 35, 40%. In addition, for your effort put in, you should get some put a salary figure over there, and then you are making sure this metric is telling you, is your business worth running or maybe not.
Right. What are some of the opportunities that you think might have opened up for design consulting companies as a business due to this changed context, due to the pandemic? Do you think there has been anything on that side from a positive impact angle?
You see, in my opinion, I am also from a service industry, but different from y'all, because y'all probably would still have constraints in the sense that each client deserves attention, deserves time. So you have a ceiling. Otherwise, in this pandemic, thanks to this technology that we use, the markets have opened up. World has become the market. And if volumes can go up, I don't know whether in your case volumes can go up or not, because you still have to devote time to each client.
That's right.
Let's say someone like me, if I'm doing training, earlier on, if there were 20, 30 people in a room, because the room could accommodate 20, 30 people. Now there is no room, physical room.
Right.
So I can probably have 300 or 3,000 people, and they don't have to be from one town where I'm sitting right now. They could be from all over the world. So suddenly the market has expanded. And therefore, on the positive side for the client, we can reduce the price. So it's a win-win kind of a thing. What you lose in terms of per head charging, I don't know I don't know your industry very well. Therefore, I may not be able to answer questions specific to the design sector. So if you have things where you can cater to mass, I don't know if you can do training session on teaching, creating more designers in the world. Then suddenly this will be a wonderful thing for you, because the training can happen through technology like this, through Zoom, through Team and so on. And therefore, pricing can come down, so business can come in. So I think you'll have to look for opportunities. If I come to you saying, design my whole, my look and feel and my logos and this and that, then whether you're doing online or you're doing face-to-face, the time involved is the same. So you suddenly cannot, you cater to too many more clients. So I think if everybody applies your thought and sees which things are there which can be mass producible. For example, since I left my CA practice and many other things I was doing and went totally into education as a hobby turned passion turned full-time activity. But being a CA trained person, mind used to be, now, if I'm going to teach, if I'm going to stand up and teach in a room, then I can't teach more than 365 days. So the growth is automatically pre-decided. So then you're always thinking, how do we break that barrier? So we took the route of e-learning, and we took the route of videos, and we took the route of books. So I used to call it, we are trying to productize a service. When it is service, it has constraints. But the moment it becomes a product, it becomes mass producible.
Right.
So I think a thought to be applied by everybody will have to be, which area can you productize your service?
That's a great insight, Dr. Lamba. Could you give us a few examples of some of the service companies that have probably productized their business? And do you think this could be a path for small service companies to become more attractive to investors? Do you think that that's a path?
I think this should be one of the topics of one of your subsequent ADI meetings, brainstorming. Because since I don't know your industry very well, I know to a little extent. Since everybody will now be using social media, and you guys are the creators, I think that is one very, very great opportunity, because we need to reach out to the world. Now, how you no longer can advertise on print media, you can no longer advertise on the traditional ways, because the cost will go through the roof. So the only option seems to be social media. So since you are catering to many clients who would be using that, this is one great opportunity, I think, which, and without designers, this cannot be done. So designers are the most important ingredient in that. So I think that is one area. Second area could be education and training and creating more designers. I think this needs brainstorming. I've not given enough thought to it.
Sure. Anybody else would like to share anything, or probably have any doubts?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, there is recently I was reading about the government allowing patents to be leveraged as assets, right? If you have intellectual property, you can leverage that as an asset and then use it as a collateral. What is have what is your view on that, and how does one value that? Is there a
From an accounting perspective, uh, there'll be a lot of misconception about this. Just as you have something called patent, there's another term called goodwill, another term called brand value. These are all perceptions in the mind of people. If your balance sheet has something called a brand on the asset side and mine doesn't, it doesn't mean I don't have a brand value, and it doesn't mean you have it, or vice versa. Suppose my balance sheet shows brand, that doesn't mean I have a brand value. My balance sheet can only have a brand over there as an asset provided I have paid for it. You see, in your normal colloquial language, you will say, oh, this fellow has a lot of brand equity. You are saying his brand is very known, or, everybody knows it. But it doesn't enter the balance sheet unless there is a monetary value attached to it, which you have paid for. So my balance sheet has brand only because I went to somebody and I said, listen, I want to buy your brand, and I paid him a certain amount. That has come in. Yours is the homegrown brand, therefore it doesn't appear in your balance sheet.
okay?
That doesn't mean so someone's balance sheet that doesn't have brand as an asset doesn't mean it doesn't have. So your brand normally will never appear in your balance sheet. If and when you decide I want to sell, or a foreign guy comes and says, Mahajan, you've done such a great job, sell me your company, I will pay you 50 crores. Now this brand will appear in his balance sheet, not yours. So even though you build the brand, it will never ever come into your balance sheet.
Right. Right. Most of our efforts goes in moving design from one side of the balance sheet to the other, right? That has been the challenge. That's been the selling challenge for designers for a long time. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that has been one of our concerns with most of the clients for the design industry. Design is always the cost center. We are, right there with the R&D, and it's very difficult to move money spent on design. People don't capitalize money spent on design.
It's a choice.
Completely expensify it.
I mean, it's a choice. They may have opted to put it as an expense so that they can write it off for tax purposes.
Right.
Because if you have spent a significant amount of money, and if you feel the effect of what you have done will last over extended period of time, then correctly speaking, it should be capitalized.
Right.
So if someone doesn't do it, it has been a choice of theirs, or probably they're trying to hoodwink the income tax department.
So the question came from how do we really kind of change this attitude with
so literacy. So literacy. So we must do a program, Rugved.
Yeah.
We must.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Dr. Lamba, I have a question. And
Sure.
it's not about your advice about what should you do and all that. The question is about, see, you are a professional who probably is a neutral to our business or our communities. Like, just trying to say that you are not having that same problem of having the skin in the game. So as an outsider, how do you see design profession as something that has got kind of a financial footprint? Like, you can understand that a fashion design company can be assessed by the brand, the collections, the kind of revenue that goes in all. Or you can actually probably understand how a ad agency is looking like, financially, like how it looks like in case of their financial graph, or what kind of balance sheet looks like. How do you see a design company's financial footprints as an outsider, as a person, neutral person around for this profession?
Haven't given it a thought, haven't seen any design company's balance sheet, but I have a feeling, since you're in the service sector, there's a term in costing called contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Contribution is your profit is a result of your revenue generated minus your expenses. But your expenses can be broken up into two parts. There are variable expenses and there are fixed expenses. So if you minus the variable expenses from your revenue, what is left is called contribution. And contribution minus fixed cost is profit.
Of course.
So consequently, somebody said you're working with Tata Motors formally. So Tata Motors, if they sell an Indica car for 15 lakhs, the variable cost to make that car might be 12 lakhs.
Mm-hmm.
So the contribution left is about 3 lakhs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have about, say, 30 crores of fixed cost to be recovered. So 3 lakhs is the contribution per car and 30 crores is the fixed cost. Then unless say they sell maybe say 100 cars, they will not break even.
Of course.
Now, advantage in any service industry is the variable cost component is very small.
True. True.
So if you bill somebody 1 lakh rupees, probably your variable cost may not be more than 3, 4, 5,000.
True.
So the contribution generated is as high as 95%.
Yeah.
Now the only thing you have to figure out is how to recover the fixed cost. You may have a team, you have staff, you have rent, etc., etc. So once you have sufficient clients, so your clients should be broken up into bread and butter clients who give you enough revenue to cover those fixed costs. Now beyond that, for every 100 rupees billing that you do, 95 rupees is your profit. So that suddenly gives you scope for, if you want to be predatory in your pricing, you have a lot of scope. If somebody charges 100, you can even charge 6 rupees and make a profit because the variable cost is only 5. So if with this COVID happening and if the market is opening up and you can make your presence felt to the world and there are other countries where business can come in from, and if to make an entry, if you wish to go with aggressive pricing, I think the scope is up. If Tata Motors wants to be aggressive, 15 lakh Indica, they can sell lowest at 12 lakhs. Below that, they'll make a cash loss per car sold.
Correct. Correct.
So I think this is one great strength of anyone in the service. I'm not really saying in design guys, someone like me, anybody. So I think, so this basic understanding of finance everybody should have. Just to give you an idea, is everybody here comfortable with stuff like variable cost, contributions and so on?
Yeah.
Yes.
For example, let's say you're running an airline. Let's say you have a flight leaving from Pune to Delhi. You have a 100-seater aircraft. Let's say you have just now filled fuel in your aircraft of 5 lakh rupees. So cost of fuel 5 lakhs, number of seats 100. So per seat fuel cost is 5,000. Now let's say you spend another 200-300 rupees per passenger giving him sandwich, soft drink, etc. So 5,000 fuel, assuming these are the only costs. 5,000 fuel cost, 300 rupees, 5,300 is your cost per passenger. You decide we will price Pune-Delhi flight at 9,000. Now imagine flight is about to take off. 100 people are not there, 50 people are there. And one fellow comes running up the runway, bag in hand. Can you take me also? But he says, I can't pay 9,000. Now what is the least we can charge him? Would you like to answer on chat also, anybody?
1 rupee.
Your cost is 5,000. Huh? How much is the least you can charge?
Yeah.
So very often the response would be 5,300. Can't go below that. Your range is between 5,300 and 9,000. But if this fellow says, I can pay 1,500 rupees, can you take him on or not? Grab him. Don't let him go. It's a different matter to him. You should charge 18,000 because he has come last minute.
Yeah.
But if he says, you know, take me on, otherwise another flight is leaving 30 minutes, I'm going there, then don't let him go. So then this makes a difference between, so you react according to situations. Whole idea being, gentlemen, don't forget how to improve bottom line. Your entire focus has to be how to improve bottom line. Unless you work with an eye on the bottom line, and at one time in India, profit was a bad word. Folks, unless you don't make profit, how will you survive? I mean, even if a charitable organization has to generate surpluses, not deficits. If they generate deficit, the charitable organization shut down. So if somehow this literacy has to go across everybody, this is a job of everyone within the organization.
I have a question. Yeah, hi. To kind of meet short-term revenue gaps, let's say, so let's say there is a lot of billing that has happened, but the conversion is not happening, as in the clients are not paying up and things like that. In such a situation, which is happening right now, what would be a better way to go? So accessing your CC or things like bill discounting, which the government is offering to MSMEs?
So both options are open to you, bill discounting as well as CC. If your client is reliable, if you know the money is bound to come in, then the only thing you have to do is whichever is the cheaper option is what you should choose. Bill discounting will cost you a certain amount, CC will cost you a certain amount, whichever costs you less is the option you should choose.
Okay, like as simple as that.
As simple as that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Amit.
Yeah. I have a quick question. I'm just twisting one of the earlier questions that was asked, like about investors. Basically, what I've understood is that I could be wrong, and that's what I'm just looking for clarity for maybe everyone, that investors do not like to invest in the service sector, right? That is one impression that I've got, right? And the second part is that maybe we should then keep our minds open to adapt, like some of the suggestions you gave. What exactly are investors looking for that can maybe help us, help to guide us which direction to take? Like investors typically look for scalability, that you should not be able to be duplicated very fast, right? The app roots are like doing very well. So, any light for us, like what usually are the investors looking for? Yeah.
First thing they look for is scalability. Any business which is not scalable will not attract private investors, private equity. So unless you can productize certain parts of your service, this problem will continue. But then having said that, if your business is not scalable, why would you want investors? You should probably use borrowed money only. Borrowed money is the cheapest money. First of all, I'm assuming you will not raise money, whether investors or borrowed, unless you see results coming out of it. Because if you don't see results coming out of it, neither you should take bank loan, nor should you take investors' money. And if you see results coming out of it, and if your business is not scalable, then I'd rather take money which in the next few years I can pay back and have the entire ownership with myself. Why would I want to share the ownership with somebody? So the only time where you should also seek investors is, number one, you feel there's a lot of potential for growth and therefore it is scalable. Number two, you feel the investor, in fact, investor only putting in money is a useless fellow. He'll make your life miserable. That investor should come with some strength. That investor should either be able to leverage market for you or be able to leverage technology for you. So your investor has to be necessarily a strategic investor. So I think a lot of thought you guys should give to the scalability part of it or productizing part of it.
All right. Okay. That is.
I have a question. I have a question here. This is Yogesh.
Dr. Lamba, are you open to take another question?
Of course.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. So I think this is a question probably a lot of designers might find it close to their heart. See, a lot of times we are creating some solution or adding value to our client's business. And most of the times we are fighting to justify that value to him, saying that it really is that value and we should get paid, and the rest of the story follows in terms of our generating fees. Now, a lot of designers also have ideas which they feel that it can be productized. Yeah. So maybe somebody says that I can make something in my backyard and possibly it has the possibility of scalability. Or I can make some small souvenirs which I can sell. Or I have this large product idea which I know I can passionately design, but I probably need an investor who possibly pushes it or maybe is able to capture it well and guide. So in such a situation, there is a dilemma for the designer to understand what is his role into this entire scale, because he's passionately involved and the investors mostly involved with the kind of a finance or the money background. And how do you see a designer interacting with the investor in such a situation? What would be your advice to a designer, where he should draw a line, where he should really go that far, or where he should leave some things to the investor so that maybe the separate entity can be formed which can be floated on its own, where designer keeps his interest as well?
Very difficult question to answer, but I think there will be many, many businesses where design will play an extremely important role. Certain businesses, it may not. But in certain businesses, it will play an extremely important role in the success of that particular product that is being launched by that startup. Now, having said that, some startups may be reluctant for constraints of money, may be reluctant to pay a huge amount to the designer. In fact, this is giving, while listening to you, a thought was coming to my mind. If you guys can somehow become partners with that startup, saying don't scrounge, don't cut on the designing costs, and maybe get paid in terms of equity. This way, it will solve your scalability problem also. Maybe a certain portion of your energy, if you support startups who either don't have the money and therefore are reluctant to spend money on design and hiring expensive designers, etc. If you can help them establish their product, help them establish their brand identity, help them create their better presence, and if they don't have the money, get partially paid in money to cover your variable costs at least, so that you don't go out of pocket. And for the rest of it, if you get paid in equity, and when that startup does well, that can probably bring a great dividends for you. Investors will be looking at it a little skeptically, and therefore the time to get in is before the other investors have gotten.
Okay.
So that eliminates the problem of handling that number cruncher who doesn't necessarily understand the value of design, etc. Otherwise, it's a matter of negotiation, I think.
But this actually is answering half part of my question. The second half of the question was, for example, let us say that I have this particular product that I want to make. It is beautiful or whatever it is, and there is this advantage that I've got. Now, a designer wants to say that, yes, I also have an ambition of getting this into a big company. Maybe my whole forte is lying into making sure that the product is great. I can create a family of this and all the stuff, but I need somebody to actually manage or run this entire thing, and maybe it needs money also. So how should designer find his role into this new entity which is making this, which is possibly a brainchild of the designer, but how should he place himself into this new partnership? That's what is the second part of the question. I'm not talking about.
So the idea belongs to the designer.
Correct. And he wants
to getting in maybe an engineering partner, a technical partner to help
correct.
You create the
Yeah.
product.
So maybe a technical partner or maybe an investor later on. So how should the designer keep his interest alive?
And it should be pretty easy. You make the entire project. This is something which it's your brainchild, you come up with it, you do the projections, and you say now you are 100% equity holder when you are there. And then you are diluting your equity as and when you get people in. So if you just go to somebody with an idea and that fellow sees value in your idea, he builds it and then tries to give you a stake, that is a very poor way of approaching it. And there are strong chances of you being gypped of your entire idea, and that fellow will take it over and consume you. So if a designer has an idea of a great thing which can become a large project, then I suggest take that idea to the logical end on paper, see the value, then go and get the right ingredients, the missing ingredients that are there, and start giving equity to those guys according to what you feel that value they bring to the table. I think that would be a far better way to approach this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
This has been great, Dr. Lamba, and I think you have stirred our brains, and I think we will require
Siddharth, I have one
sessions.
Siddharth, I have one question if Dr. Lamba is willing to.
Sure.
Dr. Lamba, are you willing to
Absolutely.
stay on for a little?
All right. Dr. Lamba, this is Ashish here, and I have a question to you now as an educator. Yeah, and since you have been now in the field of education for many years, and in design education, one of the things which we have noticed is that you are taught about value. You are never talked about profit profitability of profit. And we talked about, and I think you made the whole essence right at the beginning by saying that the entire exercise is all about profitability, making profits. In the whole design world and this whole world of design education, each student is told that it's about creating value. And the word probably profit is equal to money is never mentioned. What value means is that you are doing good. You are doing good to the consumer, you're doing good to the society, you're doing good to the business, and so on. But it never boils down to profitability. Do you see a case where profitability, as in how do you manage your finances and make money out of it, becomes a subject and should become a subject probably in the field of design?
100%. And why design? Any course. In fact, finance has to be mandatory subject. Any training is incomplete without a training of finance. The course that Rugved mentioned, that long course, I think Rugved also has an IIT some background, right? Lots of IITians have done that course, and all these IITians are now large business people, influential business people, and invariably a question used to come in every batch: why weren't we taught this in IIT? So because they were now influential people, they went and spoke to IIT Bombay. Many years back, I had a long conference call with IIT Bombay saying, what are you teaching them? And after that, I believe they've introduced a subject in the curriculum. Because these people who are now people whose voices could be heard, and they went and repeatedly told those guys, "Tumne kyun nahi padhaya?" So, this education is incomplete without teaching finance. And also why profit is important, even if you don't want to make money for the sake of making money, you want to do charity. Look at Bill Gates, continues to make money, but gives 90-95% of his wealth as charity. Look at Azim Premji. They haven't stopped making money. Otherwise, they should be saying, I want to do charity. Why should I make money? If you don't make money, you can't do charity also. Right. Profit doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something bad. It is something to do good also. You need money ultimately.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Lamba. I think it's a big lesson for all the world of design education. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Dr. Lamba.
Yeah, on behalf of ADI Pune, I would like to really thank you, Dr. Lamba, for putting things in black and white. Actually, while as designers, we like to romance the colors, and finance is always a gray area for us, but romancing the balance sheet has been very, very out of scope kind of a subject. But thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Do we have also? Can I have one more question, if
sure.
possible?
Sure.
So, hi, I'm Satyajit. I don't know why my video is not switching on, but I'm running a product innovation company. Okay, so we're not a consultancy. What we do is we take the product, like you said, from scratch. We patent it, we edit IP, we take it to market to a certain stage. And then we sort of look at how we can leverage that IP, or we can take that product forward. We were able to do that with one of our products, which is Spotties. We just licensed it to a tile company in India after running it ourselves for about 16 months and having sold about 18,000 units on our own. And then we were able to capitalize that, but that took a lot of time and a lot of effort, in the first 1 year. What happened is, we are not a sanitary ware company, but first project was a toilet product in the ceramic field. Now, what we realized is we're going to keep building different kinds of products in different kinds of domains, right? So we are sector agnostic. Now, having said that, when I'm raising money for this kind of a venture, what happens is either I will get a partner who's in a particular sector or who wants to look at it like that, because there are very few investors that I've come across who understand the design background or where we are coming from as probably like an R&D hub for many different products to be built out, right? So what would your advice be of how to disperse equity in this kind of a scenario? Because the bet is not only on a toilet, but tomorrow I've recently built another product, which I've launched a subsidiary company under my main company to run that and to take people onto those companies. So then it kept getting complicated every time we do a product. So do you think we should look at an investor from the cloud company or separate projects?
First of all, compliments. I think what you're doing is wonderful. This is the way to go about it. It can be painful. You're doing the initial part yourself at your own cost, at your own time.
Yeah, that is.
But this is the way that you can give you the highest possible value. Number two, who and how much equity to give will be a case-to-case situation. There is no formula for that.
Right.
Again, your option has to be, you have to give to the highest bidder, give the minimum possible equity at the highest possible value.
Right.
Anyone who tells you there are methods of valuation is talking nonsense. Valuation is only done backwards. Once you and I agree on a price, we'll go backward and fit a formula and say, this is the formula we used. So
Right.
ultimately, it's a matter of negotiation. You got to keep looking. The world is very large. You'll find people who see the value in what you're doing. If you're talking to somebody who doesn't understand the value of design or something, don't waste your time with that person.
Right.
Find the right person. When you get the right person, that is where the deal will happen.
Right.
It can be frustrating. It won't happen overnight. You'll have to look for it. But then there are agencies, and today, thanks to internet and all, it's not difficult to reach out to, spread the word.
Right.
But I think you're doing a wonderful. This is the route I suggest everybody should take.
Right. I just have a simple, a slightly more deeper question into that is, when everybody comes and, when you have investment bankers with you, who we've been talking to for the last, some years, because this is completely bootstrapped at the moment, and we don't have an investor at the moment. But now, since we were able to license off our first bet, there's obviously some promise that some people are seeing and, who missed the boat when we were pitching it to them earlier. Now, what I'm understanding is, how do you create the valuation on different products? Because different products have different life, have a different life, and like the scale is completely different. For example,
all rolled into one company, or you got multiple companies?
Currently, all rolled into one company. I have a subsidiary in India and I have a subsidiary in the US.
So maybe you should spin off product, make a business plan product by product.
Right. That's what we follow.
The biggest thing that an investor will see is something called proof of concept.
Right.
So if you need money for proof of concept, so take as little minimum possible that you need.
Right.
So you should have series of rounds of funding, not obviously one.
Right.
If you don't want to first you need to convince an angel investor.
Right.
Then take it to the next level.
All right. Once again, thank you, Dr. Lamba.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It is lovely.
Thank you, sir.